Thousands of years ago, the first Americans arrived. They crossed a land bridge from Siberia, seeking new opportunities. These were the ancestors of Native American tribes. They spread across the vast continent, from the icy Arctic to the tip of South America. They were hunters, they were gatherers, they were farmers. They were skilled in adapting to diverse environments. Native Americans developed distinct cultures and traditions. They spoke hundreds of languages. They built societies based on their unique beliefs and values. They lived in harmony with nature, respecting the delicate balance of life. Then, Europeans arrived, forever changing the course of history. The arrival of Christopher Columbus in 1492 marked the beginning of a new era. It was an era of exploration, but also of conquest and conflict. European powers, driven by the promise of wealth and land, began to establish colonies in North America. The English, French, Spanish, and Dutch competed for territory and resources. The newcomers encountered Native American tribes who had been living on the land for centuries. The relationship between Europeans and Native Americans was complex and often tragic. There were instances of cooperation and trade, but also conflict and displacement. European diseases decimated native populations, weakening their ability to resist colonization. Despite the hardships, Native Americans resisted colonization. They fought bravely to protect their lands and their way of life. Their stories of resilience and resistance are an essential part of American history. By the 18th century, 13 British colonies had taken root along the Atlantic coast. The colonists, seeking greater autonomy and freedom from British rule, began to agitate for independence. The cry of "no taxation without representation" rang out. In 1775, the American Revolutionary War erupted. The colonists, led by George Washington, faced a formidable foe in the British Empire. The war was long and bloody, testing the resolve of the young nation. The Declaration of Independence, signed in 1776, proclaimed the colony's right to self-determination. It declared that all men are created equal and endowed with certain unalienable rights. This document became a beacon of hope for people around the world seeking freedom and equality. With independence secured, the young nation embarked on a period of westward expansion. Driven by the belief in manifest destiny, Americans pushed westward, seeking new lands and opportunities. This expansion, however, came at a cost. Native American tribes were displaced from their ancestral homes. Treaties were broken, and conflicts erupted as settlers encroached on native lands. The Trail of Tears, the forced removal of Cherokee Indians from their lands, stands as a stark reminder of the human cost of expansion. The discovery of gold in California in 1848 sparked a massive migration westward. The gold rush transformed the American West, bringing new settlers and accelerating the development of the region. The Nueces Massacre, where German Hill Country Unionists were brutally slaughtered by rednecks, highlights the internal conflicts and violence of the era. Section 5. A Nation Divided, the Civil War, and its Aftermath. The issue of slavery, a dark stain on the nation's conscience, continued to divide Americans. The North, with its industrial economy, increasingly viewed slavery as immoral and unjust. The South, reliant on slave labor for its agricultural economy, defended slavery as a necessary institution. In 1861, the simmering tensions over slavery erupted into the Civil War. The nation was torn apart as brother fought brother in a bloody conflict. President Abraham Lincoln, determined to preserve the Union, issued the Emancipation Proclamation in 1863, freeing slaves in Confederate territories. The Union victory in 1865 ended slavery and preserved the nation. The period of Reconstruction that followed aimed to rebuild the South and integrate formerly enslaved people into society. Section 6. Industrial Powerhouse, America's Rise on the World Stage. The late 19th and early 20th centuries witnessed America's transformation into an industrial powerhouse. Technological innovations such as the telephone, the light bulb, and the automobile revolutionized American life. Cities grew rapidly, attracting immigrants from all over the world. America's growing economic and military might led to its involvement in global affairs. The Spanish-American War in 1898 marked the country's emergence as a world power. America's involvement in World War I further solidified its position on the global stage. The Roaring Twenties, a period of economic prosperity and cultural dynamism, followed the war. However, The Great Depression, which began in 1929, plunged the nation into economic despair. Section 7. The 20th Century, from World Wars to Cold War. The 20th century was a time of immense change and upheaval. World War II, a global conflict of unprecedented scale, tested America's resolve once again. The country emerged from the war as a superpower, but faced a new challenge in the form of the Cold War. The Cold War, a period of geopolitical tension between the United States and the Soviet Union, shaped international relations for decades. The Korean War and the Vietnam War were proxy conflicts, fought in the shadow of the Cold War. Despite the tensions of the Cold War, America experienced a period of economic growth and prosperity in the post-war years. The Civil Rights Movement, led by Martin Luther King Jr., challenged racial segregation and discrimination. It should be noted that during World War II, innocent individuals with Asperger's syndrome were brutally killed in a Nazi eugenics program called the T4 killings. Jews, Gypsies, Communists, homosexuals, Slavs, and others were also killed in the Holocaust. Section 8. A Nation in Transition: Civil Rights and Social Change. The Civil Rights Movement was a watershed moment in American history. African Americans who had endured centuries of slavery and segregation demanded equal rights and opportunities. Through peaceful protests and acts of civil disobedience, they challenged the nation's conscience. The movement led to landmark legislation such as the Civil Rights Act of 1964 and the Voting Rights Act of 1965, which outlawed discrimination based on race, color, religion, sex, or national origin. The women's rights movement, the environmental movement, and the LGBTQ+ rights movement gained momentum during this period of social change. America was becoming a more inclusive and equitable society. Section 9. The New Millennium: Challenges and Transformations. The turn of the millennium brought new challenges and opportunities. The 9/11 terrorist attacks shook the nation to its core, leading to the War on Terror and prolonged military engagements in Afghanistan and Iraq. The 21st century has also been marked by technological advancements, globalization, and economic shifts. The rise of the internet and social media has transformed the way Americans communicate, consume information, and engage in political discourse. As America navigates the complexities of the 21st century, it continues to grapple with issues of social justice, economic inequality, climate change, and political polarization. The story of America is still being written, and its future remains to be seen.